Yes, good. See, Nathan's special touch. You see that? Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay, so the Gemara says, one area. We are on Gimel Amid Beis, the article 3b1, on the first column. Omamar, potem and mezuzah. We said about this room. If this room is not 7 feet by 7 feet, if it's not dalan amot by dalan amot, if it's less than 4 amot by 4 amot, which we said is around less than 7 feet by 7 feet, it's potum and mezuzah. It's potum. You don't have to put a mezuzah. There's no mitzvah of mezuzah on a room that's so small. A room has to have a certain minimum area. Let's say if it has, even if it doesn't, even if it's not exactly 7 feet by 7 feet, 7 feet wide and 7 feet long, but if the total equals the area of 7 feet by 7 feet, let's say it's a very narrow room, very narrow but very long, right? And the total area, let's say you have a room that goes from here to here from here to there, right? Let's say you have a room that goes from here to there, but it's very narrow. But the total area is 7 feet by 7 feet. You would put a mezuzah. Maybe you will make a bracha on such a room, right? So, but if it's such a small little room, right? You don't put a mezuzah. Now, that's potem in a mezuzah. Umina makeh, and we said also it's potem from makeh. Such a room, such a house that's so small, it's not called a house. And there's the mitzvah of putting a gate fence on your roof. But it's on a roof of a house. This is not a house. The Gemara says, and it's not metam goyim. If such a house has leprosy in the walls of the house, what did you say? Morning, Mr. Bitesh. That house is not subject to the laws of Mitzvah Kadriya Mitzvah that discusses what do you do if you see a spot in your walls of your house. And we know why does Hashem send a spot on the walls of a house. One reason is because if you don't use your house properly, you don't use your utensils of your house, you don't lend to other people to use. Spiders in your wall, you see a certain color, discoloring in the wall. This is not a natural discoloring. This Hashem would send a message to the people that you're not using your house properly. We don't have this today, that this type of miracle, just like the Hashem would send a spot on a person's hand. Certain spots on a person's hand. What's going on? Why don't I get that white? Where is that white coming from? Hashem is sending a message. You're doing something wrong in life. So really, what it's first Hashem will hit the house. After it hits the house, if the person Hashem, doesn't hit the person first. Usually hits the money, the property of the person first, and to send the message, hits the house first. If he doesn't get the message, then maybe he'll start hitting the beds of the person, the chairs, the couches of a person. Doesn't get the lesson, he'll start hitting the clothing of the person. And it doesn't hit, the person doesn't get the lesson by hitting the clothing. Where does he hit? Hits the person. Then it goes to the person fine. Then it goes on the body of the person. That is, but even so, there are one of the reasons why a person would get leprosy on his we don't have this today. That we don't merit such open type of miracle today that Hashem will send the message in that form. So, but Hashem sends messages in other forms. But one of the reasons why one of say if a person will get leprosy in the house.
Morning, Rabbi.
Morning, because what happens is there's an interesting halacha that the utensils of the house will only become contaminated only when the Kohen declares that it's contaminated. Until the Kohen declares it's contaminated, you're not contaminated. Even if you have the spot on your body or you have a spot in the wall. It needs a declaration of the Kohen, which the Chafetz Chaim explains. Why do you need the declaration of the Kohen? If it's contaminated, it's contaminated. If anybody can tell you it's contaminated, why do you need the actual? Very good. So we're gonna morning Nisan. So one reason is we know one of the main causes of leprosy is negative talk, negative speech. So the Chafetz Chaim says, look, we show the person the power of speech. Your status, the house's status, every status only depends on the word of the Kohen. Until the Kohen says contaminated, it doesn't become contaminated. Until the Kohen says you become pure, you're not pure. Even if the spot goes away. After you were contaminated, you need a declaration of the Kohen, the utterance of the Kohen, the verbal declaration of the Kohen. So we see the power of what? Of a word. because your status is dependent on the what? On the word of the Kohen. So therefore, that's to teach the person a lesson, to show the power. You hear that, Mr. Safdie? Is that a beautiful idea? Which is the that's the we want to inculcate into the person the power of words. When do people speak bad about other people? When they don't feel it, what's the big deal? I just said it. What's the big deal? I just said something. They won't do something bad against the other guy, but to speak, they would say. So therefore, the Torah wants to show you how powerful speech is, that the status depends on the speech. But the idea, one of the ideas is, we said the house does not become contaminated unless the Kohen makes a declaration. So what would the guy do? He would take certain his utensils out of the house before the Kohen comes. So then if the Kohen comes and he makes and declares it's contaminated, that will protect the utensils, that they will not be contaminated, but the utensils are not in the house. Because he removed them in the morning. He removed them before the Kohen came. So now he takes all this stuff out. And then, so now all the neighbors see that this guy was stingy. One in the town, good to see you back. This guy was, one of Jake, the guy was stingy. Because he said, when I asked him if I could borrow something, he says, no, it's not available, I don't have it, or whatever. And look, you see, it's open to everybody. Everyone sees he's taking out his stuff because he doesn't want to become contaminated. So it's the leprosy of the house is it's for somebody who was a stingy person. A stingy person is something that Torah does not want people to be stingy. Torah wants people to be generous and giving. So that's the idea about, so these halachos of the house, if the house is very small, right, Nisem, if it's such a small house, it's not subject, if it's too small, it's not 4 amma by 4 amma, less than 7 feet by 7 feet, it's not subject to these laws that apply to a house of leprosy. And the Eino Nechlat, the Bate Orichoma. When you sell a house in Israel, in a walled city, the law is that you have 1 year. You have 1 year to redeem your house, and if you don't redeem your house in the walled city that you sold, that house belongs to the person who bought it forever. You don't have the right to redeem the house past the year. The Torah gives you 1 year. You have a right when you sell your house. Now, why are people selling the houses? Because they have financial difficulty. So if they have 1 year to see if they can come out of that, and the Torah is buying you a year, so to speak, of giving you the right, and this is part of the deal. The buyer knows that I'm buying the house, but I'm taking a chance that I might have to sell you back the house. Same price. The money will be at the same price. When it comes to a house, you get it back at the same price. Yes, you go ahead, when you would sell a house in a walled city, the law would be, you have a right, there's an option to the seller to buy back his house for 1 year. The Torah says that the buyer has to allow the seller to redeem his house, to go ahead and buy back the house in a year. If he does not buy back the house in a year, so the house remains to the buyer. I presume it's verified that the guy who sold the house because he had no money. I mean, the reason why he sold the house was not because he didn't sell the house because he had money and he wanted to get more money. He sold this house because his financial situation was bad. So in a certain sense, what? Right, but in a certain sense, it's at the end of the day, if he buys it back, then he had an interest-free loan, so to speak, for that time. That's what it comes out to be. We have to look up the walled cities. We have to see walled cities. We have to see more about the halachas exactly, which for sure walled cities in the land of Israel, but we'll have to see more of the details of the halachot of these walled, which walled cities. I mean, these are psukim in the Torah that discuss this. No, it doesn't count today. But this is the we have to look at the halachot exactly which walled cities are referring to? Is it walled cities? We have to look more. It could be that this might apply only when you have the Beit HaMikdash and Yovel. When Yovel, these are laws that apply by Yovel. There's no Yovel today. These laws of Yovel don't apply. So again, these laws of selling the house, you have to see, there's a lot of halachot about to look into halachot about that. But this law, you have a right, if you sell your house, now you left your house for a year, right? It's not maybe you got some money, but your house, you left your house, we don't know for how long you're out of your house. Someone else moves into your house, has your house. Up to a year, you have a right to redeem your house. After a year, you lost your rights to redeem your house. Now, we have a halacha that if you sell a field, right? If you sell your field and you have a right to redeem your field, also a field is a certain amount, there's something called Yovel, and your field that you sell, you have, the field comes back to you. The field is your means of parnasah. So the rules are you only could sell it up to Yovel, right? That means I sell my field to Netanel. So if Yovel's in 30 years, the sale could only be for 30 years, because I can't sell that. I'm not able to sell that field forever, because I'm going to get back that field in 30 years. So the sale is limited. It's a limited. So this house, if I sell this house, it's not limited. We say a house, if I don't, it doesn't come back by Yovel to me. If I sell it, a general house, a proper house, it doesn't come back to me by Yovel, because it belongs to the buyer forever. However, that's only if I sell proper house. But this house, if it's not a proper house, it's like a field. So just like a field will come back by Yovel, it's not a permanent sale. When you sell your land, you're not able to sell your land in a permanent way. So too, this house, if it's not a house, it's treated like a piece of land, and therefore it will come back in Yovel. So homes and not homes, and also we have to look at the halachas depending walled city, where it is, walled city and not walled city. The Torah talks about fields and houses. We have to see more the halachas of other how we consider other things. These fields and houses. Now, morning, Daniel. So the Gemara says, but this does not have the status like a regular house if it's so small. Therefore, doesn't have the laws of the house, has laws of something else, like the field. We said there's a law that when you go to war, we said that if you built a house and you didn't move into the house, that's one of the exemptions from going to war. I told you in World War II, one of the exemptions was if you had flat feet. If you had flat feet, my father had flat feet. He went to Fort Dix and they told him jump, and he jumped. They said you have flat feet, you're exempt from going to the army. That's how he didn't go to the army. Friends of his went to the army. That was his exemption that he didn't go to the army. What? There was an exemption. But that was the story. He got off from the army because he had flat feet. That was, sometimes you don't know why do you have flat feet? He had flat feet. I should give him flat feet because he should be able to be off from the army. Friends of his went to the army and not everyone came back.
Rabbi, in the Israeli army, they have what we call a profile. Profile is going from the highest point is 97, then 82, and then 79, and going down all the way to 63. And if you have flat feet, they put you right away on 82. So you're not serving in one of the front unit commands, but you can still serve as a chef, as a cook, as a driver, and a lot of other things, in the tank, which you don't have to walk too much even, So
You hear what Yosef said? In the Israeli army today, if you have flat feet, they'll put you into it. You could serve in the kitchen, in the tank unit, but you won't be serving in the foot. You'll be marked. Your mark is down. You're graded. Your grade is down because if you have flat feet, even today. The things nothing you never knew about that. Now you guys, everyone learned about something today that applies today. How do you like that, Mr. Bitesh?
Right, you still have people going beyond what they're like, not, killing our country. You know, these guys, it's almost everything.
I'm not getting into any. We're talking about the flat feet. Okay, so the Gemara continues. My timer. So again, if a guy built a house and he didn't move into the house yet, so we say he gets an exemption from going to the army. He has to first move into the house. And one reason you could say is because his mind is on the house. He goes to the army. He works so hard to build a house. He's not going to fight so good. We need the guy to fight well. He's thinking about his house. He's not going to be that soldier that he needs to be. That's one idea you could explain. But if the house is less than 4 amot by 4 amot, if the house is so small, that's not a house that he would get that exemption from. So all these things that we said that if it depends on the size of a house, but if it's too small, my timer the bias sivbekulo. The Torah says about a house. It's a house. If you build a house, then you put up a fence on the roof. But if it's not a house, if it's so small, it's not a house. If you build a house and you didn't move into it, then you get off from the army. But that's only for the real house. If it's less than 7 feet by 7 feet, it's not a real house. So that's what the Gemara is saying by all these halachot. The ein ma'arvim bo. And we also said, if you have a house that leads into a courtyard, right? So we said a courtyard, which is a common space, the rabbi said that the people who live in the houses that open up into the courtyard, they need to, each house, they would collect food, bread from each house. And what they would do is they would put all the bread in one of the houses, and that would unite all the houses like they're one. Because as we explained earlier last week, that there's a concern if your house is private property, there's a prohibition to carry from private property to public property, from Shus HaYachid to Shus HaRabim. Now, if you carry from your house to the courtyard, now the courtyard, who uses the courtyard? Other members, other people have other houses, your neighbors. You have neighbors and the houses open up into this courtyard. And people see you carry from your personal private property to this area, which is, what do you call it? Quasi-public, communal, right? It looks communal because not only I'm using it, my neighbor is using it, our neighbors. And then you might come to say the same way I could carry from my house to this courtyard, which looks like semi-public, I might come to carry from my house to a real public property outside to the street, which will be a biblical prohibition. So to protect us, the rabbi said, we got to do something that people should realize that you are that this is a unique situation that allows you to carry here, that you won't come to carry into public property. So what do? We consider you live by where your food is in a certain sense. That's where, so it says that's where your lodging is. That's where your food is, that your sustenance is. So therefore, we take food from each member of the houses and we collect it. We put it all together in one of the houses. So if all the food is in one of the if this food is in one of the houses, so then people look at it that as if we're all living in that house. Good morning, Boker Tov. So if we're all living in that house, so therefore that's why we could carry into this. We're carrying into this courtyard. But it's if we're all living in one house. It's not like we're having many houses, many people sharing one courtyard. It's like one home that this courtyard belongs to this one home. And therefore people will get the message that I am not going to be able to carry into public property. So it's only a house that has a certain dimension that has 4 amot by 4 amot. That house is responsible to participate in the Eruv. Now, usually what happens today is that the rabbi, usually you can have somebody give a certain amount of matzah, and that will cover all the members of the houses. He could give it on your behalf. Not that every person has to collect from each person some matzah. And so this person who has a house that's so small, that's not even 4 amot by 4 amot, not even 7 feet by 7 feet, he does not need to participate in this Eruv. His living there does not affect everybody else's carrying into the courtyard. They don't need him to participate in the Eruv. He doesn't have a power to ruin it for everybody else. You don't need his participation in this Eruv. That's what it says. Ve'ein ma'arvim bo. He does not need to participate in the Eruv. And then also ve'ein mishtatzim bo. There's another thing that happens that, let's say we have a few steps until you get to the public property, until you get to the Rishut Harabim, the outside street. And we spoke last week about, what is Manhattan considered? Is Manhattan considered public domain or on a Torah level, a rabbinic level? And we said that the ability to carry in a public domain, we said, is that with an Eruv is only if it's considered a rabbinic public domain. We spoke about that last week, and therefore we mentioned that Moshe Feinstein's opinion is that Manhattan is considered a biblically public domain, that we really can't make an Eruv in Manhattan. That's his opinion. Other opinions say you could make an Eruv. Now we go from the house to the courtyard. From the courtyard, then the courtyards open up, all the courtyards open up into an alleyway. And that alleyway is, let's say, surrounded on 3 sides. It's also private property. And then alleyway opens up into what? Into the street. Okay, so we got a few steps before we enter the street. House to the courtyard, courtyard to the alleyway, and the alleyway to the street. So similarly, the courtyards, we also have to unite. We have to unite the courtyards together. Also, that in order to carry from the courtyard to the alleyway, we also need to collect we get some from each courtyard has to give something to unite all the courtyards like one, and then carry, and then that would also be making Eruv. We have an Eruv from the courtyards, and what do they do with that? The food from the courtyards that the courtyards give, they put it into one of the courtyards, and that will also unite all the courtyards as if they are one. So, because each courtyard is like its private courtyard, right? Just like a house is like a private, and when you go into the courtyard, you go from like private to semi-public. So when each courtyard is like one, now and then it goes into this public, semi-public alleyway, so it's like private going into a public area. So again, we have to make sure that people won't come to carry from your courtyard into the real public domain. So we unite the courtyards together by each of the courtyards participating and putting some food. And also this, if you have a house that opens up into a courtyard, if your house is that small, so your courtyard is not considered of significance, and therefore that courtyard will not have to participate in that Eruv as well. So that's what it says, ve'ein mishtatzim bo. They don't need to participate in the Eruv, the second Eruv, which is to unite the courtyards in order to carry into the alleyway. And then the Gemara says, ve'ein manichim bo Eruv. The third halacha in Eruvin is that this house that's so small, that's not even 4 amot by 4 amot, once you collected the foods from the houses that open up into the courtyard, what we say, you collect from the houses and you put the food in one of the houses. We said this house that's so small does not need to participate to give the food, and it cannot contain the food. You can't store the Eruv in this small little house, because the small little house is not fit for living. The point of the Eruv is you put the Eruv in one of the houses to show as if we're all living, that's our place of residence. As if all the members of that courtyard are living in that house. But that will only be true if the house is a place that people can live, right, Nisa? But if the house is so small, that's not a place of residence. And therefore, you don't put the Eruv in that house. Is that clear? Eruv is a clear, Mr. Safdie says it's clear, he's shaking his head. It's clear. Okay. The Ein Manichim Bo Eruv. You cannot put the Eruv there. My timer. What's the reason why you don't put the Eruv there? The Lochazi Ledira. It's not fit for living purposes. This house is not fit for living purposes. And since it's not fit for living purposes, you don't keep the eruv, the food that you collected in that house. However, shituf manichem bo. It says the eruv chatzerot you do not put into this house, but the shituf, the other eruv manichem bo, meaning to say, the eruv that we said that we collect from the different courtyards, and in order to enable you to carry from the courtyard into the alleyway, you could go ahead and place the eruv. That eruv that was collected from the different courtyards is allowed to be stored in this house. Now the question is, why is it that we said that the house, the eruv that when we wanted to unite the houses with the courtyard, we said you have to go ahead and put the food in a real house. But when you're uniting the courtyards with the alleyway, you could leave it in this house. Why? Because the rule, when you collect the food from the courtyards to unite the courtyards with the alleyway, the rule over there is where do you need to store the eruv that's collected from the courtyards? You keep it in the courtyard, but you want to make it as if all the courtyards are part of this courtyard, as if we're all one courtyard. So this house that's very small, look at the house as if it has no roof. Look at the house as if it has no walls. But if it's not called a house, it's as if it has no walls and has no roof. So then it's like a flat piece of land. It's like the courtyard itself. The same way you could put the eruv that unites all the courtyards into one courtyard, you keep it in the courtyard. So this is a courtyard. Make believe this house is a courtyard, and it's as if you keep it in the courtyard, and that's fine when it comes to uniting all the courtyards. You hear that, Mr. Safdie? You're uniting all the courtyards into one. That as if they're all, and by having the food in that one courtyard, means that it's like all the, that means this is the place that as if it's one. Yes. All the houses that open up into that courtyard, each house has to give food so they could carry from the house to the courtyard. Shita Muvayos is to carry from the courtyards into the alleyway, into the mavli. Meaning are there for that, right? If the we're talking about multiple courtyards using the same alleyway. From one courtyard, one alleyway should not need that, right? Because it's all it doesn't look like it. Why is it called Erev Chatzer? Erev. What do you want to call it? Erev Chatzer is that we're making the Chatzer, but it becomes like they're all like united, like it's one. So because you want to identify what the point is. Erev Chatzer, you're joining the Chatzer to be able to carry in the Chatzer. Erev Shituf. I mean, why is it called Eruv? Why is it called Shituf? That's your question. Good question. Why Shituf means partnership? It's a good question. So the Gemara says, "Avol Shituf manichem bo." The Shituf, the eruv that we use to unite the courtyards together, to be able to carry from the courtyards into the alleyway, we could place into this house that's so small. My timer, the Logora Mechotza Sheba Mavui. It's not worse than the courtyard that opens up into the Mavui. And what we learned at Nan, Eruv Chatzerot v'Chatzer. We said the Eruv Chatzerot, here it says Eruv Chatzerot, it's in the courtyard. And we're going to see, the Gemara is going to clarify what this means in a second. Shituf Mavoi, Mavoi b'Mavoi. And the joining of the Mavoi is in the Mavoi. Vavinaba, we ask the question, Ariva Chatzes b'Chatzer? Is the Eruv Chatzerot, do you put the Eruv Chatzerot in the courtyard? But none, the Eruv Chatzerot is you have to put the Eruv Chatzerot in a house. You don't leave it in the courtyard. You have to make it as if everyone's living in one house by putting the food in one house. Living it in the courtyard does not unite the houses together. But not Hanosin Eruvu Beit Shach, Sadr Peses. These are things that are not considered real houses. Ain't no Eruv. It's not an Eruv. V'hadarsham, and if you live in these type of places that are not real houses, ain't no oseh. They don't forbade everybody else from carrying into the courtyard if they don't participate, because they're not. If you're not a real house, Ela you have to explain it like this: Eruv chatzerot bebayit shebachotzer. Eruv chatzerot has to be placed in a house that's in the courtyard. When you collect from every home that opens up into the courtyard, you don't leave it in the courtyard, the food. You leave the food in one of the houses. But when you're joining the courtyards together, in order to carry to the alleyway, you put it into what? Into the courtyard. You leave in the courtyard that opens up into the alleyway. In this house, that's less than 4 amot, it's not worse than the courtyard itself. Imagine that the walls aren't on, the ceiling is not on, and you can keep it there. And therefore, that's why you can keep the food in that place. I want to wish everyone a great day. Question: if we would do later, would that also work for you or not? Yeah, or not?
Somebody come over later.
Put me off 10 to 4:30. Yeah. Okay, very good.
Have to move it then maybe.
Okay, we all. Thank you very much. Right down at the bottom. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yosef and his son. I want to wish you both a great day. What's your son's name? On the bottom thing.
David.
David, have a great day, David.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you,
Yeah, thank
Rabbi.
you. Yes. David knows how to say nice brachot on the food, Yosef?
Oh, you're learning every day.
David, you know how to say beautiful brachot on the food? Mommy and daddy gives you delicious food? Yeah.
Okay, הכל. ימשיך כבודו. נהיה בדברו.
David, you learned the beautiful.
Can't say that. That's too long. I'm holding like 2 months.
David, if you say nice brachot, Rabbi Freeman is going to get you a prize. Okay.
Ooh. Today
Okay,
you have to go to school today.
Yosef, you'll send me your address after he says nice brachot. You'll tell me he's doing a good job. I'm going to mail him a present. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
You're welcome, David. David, what present would you like? If you say nice brachot.
A squishy?
What does he want? What would he like?
I like a squishy, like a little squishy.
A little squishy, something like that? Okay, so I'm gonna get something nice for you. I'm gonna find whether it'll be a squishy or something else that you like. So you just have, if your daddy tells me that you're saying nice brachot on the food, I'm gonna mail you something, okay? A prize. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
So Yosef, you just gotta tell me, you send me a text. Once he does what he needs to do, you send me the text with the address, okay?
Okay, Rabbi. Thank you.
Thank you. You got it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.